Something real is brewing in Las Vegas right now. And I don't mean that in the tired, recycled way every sports commentator loves to hype up a team every August like it's some kind of sacred ritual. I mean it in the cold, hard, fact-by-fact way that separates genuine momentum from the polished, gift-wrapped optimism that NFL franchises roll out for their fan bases like clockwork every single training camp. I've been doing this long enough to know the difference. Trust me on that. I've sat through enough camps, devoured enough beat reports, and tracked enough careers from their electric beginnings all the way to their various endings, some glorious, some absolutely gutting, to recognize what a real signal looks like versus a smoke and mirrors show. And right now, the signals coming out of that Raiders facility are the kind you stop scrolling for. So stick with me, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm seeing. And I genuinely think it matters a whole lot more than most people are giving it credit for right now. Let's start with Fernando Mendoza, because honestly, every other conversation about this roster, the defense, the coaching staff, the depth chart, all of it circles back to one central question like a plane around a runway. Is this young quarterback actually becoming what the Raiders desperately need him to become? That's the whole puzzle right there. If the answer is yes, every other piece of this team gets supercharged and the ceiling on what they can accomplish shoots through the roof. If the answer is no, then all those promising defensive pieces and intriguing position battles are just background noise in what'll feel like a very long, very painful season. So before we go anywhere else, we need to plant our feet right here with Mendoza and understand what's genuinely being reported, not the factory-produced organizational praise that every team cranks out for every player in August, but the specific, granular, hard-to-wave-away details that point toward real developmental growth. And hey, if you're finding this breakdown useful, go ahead and hit that like button. It genuinely helps get this content in front of more football fans who care about the real story behind the headlines. Start with the physical foundation, because it underpins everything else when you're trying to project a quarterback's ceiling. 6'5", over 230 pounds, that's not just an impressive set of measurements to rattle off. That's a textbook prototype pocket passer build in every meaningful sense of the phrase. The kind of frame that lets a quarterback see cleanly over the interior of a defensive line, keep his cool when contact starts coming his way, and continue working through his progressions downfield rather than flinching at the first whiff of pressure and throwing the entire offensive structure out the window. That physical profile hands the coaching staff something genuinely tangible to build around. It's not a weakness they need to cleverly scheme their way out of. It's an actual asset they can design an offense to take full advantage of. Now, about the arm strength, because going into the draft process, this was a very real area of concern for evaluators who weren't fully convinced on Mendoza. And I want to be straight with you about that, because glossing over legitimate pre-draft questions does nobody any good. The skeptics had a case. What's coming out of camp right now, though, strongly suggests that case is crumbling. His arm is tracking well above the projections that even the most critical evaluators were working from. He's not going to be the guy regularly uncorking 60-yard bombs to freeze defensive backs. That's not his profile, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. What he is, and what the early reports keep coming back to with consistent, specific language, is a quarterback who can deliver the football on time with authority and accuracy into every single window that Klint Kubiak's system is deliberately designed to open up. And that matters enormously because those windows, those tight, perfectly timed throwing lanes, precisely where football games get decided. The cute comparison floating around the evaluation world right now is Sam Darnold's athleticism and movement, quality blended with Jared Goff's size and structural command of the pocket. As a reference point, I find that genuinely useful. But I also want to pump the brakes slightly on how far we chase that comparison. because player comps carry baggage in both directions and can mislead as easily as they illuminate. What the Darnold element of that comparison does helpfully point toward, though, is something I actually think is the more important conversation entirely. It points towards situational fit, because Sam Darnold's career is essentially a graduate-level course in how dramatically the environment surrounding a quarterback determines what that quarterback can actually become. Watch Darnold in New York. It was genuinely painful. A young player being asked to hold together a fractured, dysfunctional situation with inadequate tools, inadequate protection, and an organization that felt like it was held together with duct tape and wishful thinking. Then watch what happened when he landed in Minnesota, inside a functioning infrastructure with a coaching staff that actually understood what his game needed to breathe and operate at its real level. Same human being, completely different player. The gap between those two versions of Sam Darnold has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with environment. And here's what strikes me hardest about Mendoza's situation. He's not going to spend years wandering through bad situations searching for the right home the way Darnold did. He's starting inside the right situation from day one. The system being constructed around him is built for what he does. The coaching commitment to his development is there from the very beginning. That is genuinely rare for a young quarterback, rarer than most people appreciate. And it matters more than almost any individual physical measurement when you're trying to map out how a career takes shape in those critical early years. If you're enjoying this deep dive, do me a favor and drop a comment below, even just to tell me what you think about Mendoza's chances this season. It really helps the channel grow, and I read every single one. But let me slow down on one specific thing, because I think it tells you more about who Fernando Mendoza really is as a competitor than any velocity chart or combine testing profile ever could. He turned down a White House visit to stay at the facility and put in extra work. I want you to actually sit with that for a second, because the natural instinct when you hear it is to nod and immediately move on without fully processing what that decision actually means. This is the first overall pick in the draft. His name is at the center of every NFL conversation happening anywhere right now. The spotlight, the platform, the celebration, the fuss, all of it is aimed directly at him. And it was all aimed squarely at him in that exact moment when a White House invitation was sitting right in front of him. His answer was no. His answer was, I need to be on that practice field taking extra reps. Nobody told him to do that. No coach pulls a #1 overall pick to the side and says, hey, skip the White House, go work on your footwork. That decision came entirely from within the player, from a 22-year-old who has an unusually mature and clear-eyed understanding of exactly where he stands in his own development and what this specific moment in his career genuinely demands of him, regardless of what might look shinier or more celebratory from the outside. I've watched enough training camps over the years to know how extraordinarily rare that kind of internal clarity is at his age. You cannot coach it into someone. You cannot install it through organizational culture workshops or carefully worded media training sessions. Either it lives inside a player or it doesn't. With Mendoza, from everything coming out of that facility right now, it's clearly living inside him, loud and clear, and then layer on top of that what's being reported about his pre-practice work. Both Mendoza and center Tyler Linderbaum are brand new to this organization, learning this offense simultaneously and building their quarterback-center relationship essentially from scratch at the very same time. Before official practice sessions even get underway each day, Mendoza is already out on that field taking snaps, both under center and from the shotgun, specifically to fast-track the timing and communication that a functional QB-center relationship demands before it can hold up under real, live competitive pressure. I want to be precise about why that specific detail resonates so strongly with me. It's not the generic extra work story. Every coaching staff in the league will tell you their guys are putting in extra work. That's just standard issue PR. What makes this meaningful is the targeted, intentional specificity of it. Mendoza identified a precise gap in his own readiness, the developing chemistry with his new center, and he decided to attack it directly before the formal schedule even required him to think about it. That's not a player simply surviving training camp and checking boxes. That is a player actively trying to be ready before readiness is officially demanded of him. Those are two fundamentally different orientations toward the exact same situation, and the difference between them compounds interest over the length of an entire career. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. This is exactly the kind of nuanced, behind-the-scenes analysis I bring you every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next on this Raiders rebuild story. Now let's get into the quarterback competition, because it deserves a genuinely honest treatment. More honest than most of the commentary around it has been offering. Kirk Cousins is currently reading as the more likely Week 1 starter. That's the real picture emerging from camp, and I'm not going to sandpaper the edges of that or twist it into something more emotionally satisfying than it actually is. But here's why I think the black and white version of this debate: Mendoza starts equals good, Cousins starts equals bad, misses something genuinely important about the real developmental picture. There's a legitimate historical argument, grounded in actual outcomes from actual careers, for carefully managing a young quarterback's introduction to professional football rather than immediately dropping him into the full structural weight of a starting role from September Week 1, the quarterbacks who got thrown into the deep end before the conceptual foundation was solid enough to support that weight, before the reads were automatic, before the offensive line communication was functional, before the rhythm with receivers existed. Those quarterbacks make up a disproportionately large share of the careers that ended before they ever should have. Development got damaged in ways that took years to repair. In some cases, it never fully repaired. Sam Darnold nearly joined that group permanently. The instinct to use a proven veteran like Cousins as a buffer while the surrounding infrastructure continues to mature around Mendoza is not timidity. It's an argument with genuine developmental history and real data behind it. I can respect that argument even while forming my own clear view on what I think the right call ultimately is.